This is a U.S.-China Media Brief produced by the UCLA Asian American Studies Center.
The problem is partly a question of which values are widely and sincerely invoked at a sort of national scale. But that directs my attention to the sort of the other end of the scale. Which values get invoked most frequently in small groups of friends, right? At what point and on what terms does someone just become unacceptable as an associate because of something they've done? Is it trust? Is it insincere flattery or something? Is it greed? I'm curious about what your sense is of the crucial values, the top one or two values in small interpersonal groups. Because I have a feeling that, in a sort of vernacular way, values are with us all the time. We cannot do business. We cannot live with each other without them. How do the Chinese invoke them in those small settings?
What would you say?
Well, it's, never ask a question. I think in contrast to what we talk about a lot here in Los Angeles, there's not a lot of overt attacking people for being phonies, for instance. But trust is probably an important one. I don't know. I can understand.
Trust and sincerity popped to my mind. I think you're right that in the small group session contexts, this problem of values that I tried to talk about today isn't so unusual. My sense is that Chinese people probably like or dislike each other, trust or don't trust each other in small family or friend contexts, more or less the way they have for a long time. So what I was trying to talk about are public values, that you can go out on the street and into the larger society and count on people observing. Yeah.
In Chinese public opinion and also public values, the image of central government is much better than the image of local government.
Right.
So I'm wondering why it is like this. Well, now in America it's different. Then the federal government, local government. So it's a counterpart. So can talk more, a little more about that? Why it is the central government's image is always much better.
Well, two reasons pop to mind, but I wouldn't argue that they explain the whole scene. One is that in the press and in fiction, when corruption is, there's a lot of stories in the press now about corruption in China, but it's always aimed at the local levels, because you can't say the top people are corrupt. So that way of thinking just kind of kicks in. I suppose that when a person has a conflict over can I get a house or not, or why did you take my land or not, the most immediate villain is the one that's right above you. That might be a reason. And then deeper in Chinese culture, of course, there's this bao qing tian kind of thought where you want there to be a good person at the top who can set things straight. It's almost an item of faith. The Chinese petitioners, the shangfangzhe, who come to provincial capitals and into Beijing to get things set right, seldom get things set right. That's a very futile process if you analyze how many cases really get set right that way. They don't. But yet the faith that, oh, if we go to the top, we'll finally get a fair hearing is kind of an inherited assumption in Chinese culture, I think, to a certain extent. It's interesting, though, that you point out in modern Western society that's often the opposite. You get on the phone and you complain, my phone service is bad, and then they'll say, well, they won't let me or something. And then you agree with the person at the bottom that it's the ones up there that are at fault. Yeah.
Actually, I have been here in Beijing for 55 years. I always think every culture you have to look at the long and far-wide view.
Right.
Regarding America or the world or China. Because I have been practicing as I looked at China from the American Western eyes look at America from other different, you use your own perspective or use the historical or geographically. Because so many times you talk about the press. I've been reading Chinese paper in the last 2 years. But before, I exclusively probably read American papers. Mm-hmm. But I found actually, if you only read the local paper or American papers, you really, newspaper, you do not really get a true picture either. Even there's because it's just in human interest. For instance, some of the reporting regarding the Xinjiang, and the United Los Angeles Times reported that Xinjiang, it's the Han people killing the Wei people. And that was not true because what they were getting news from Wei people. And then we have recently, the reason why I read Chinese paper was because I was reading about Chen Shui-bian. I was very happy with that. But the only story that in the Los Angeles Times was a picture says political prosecution. They really have very little press. So I'm asking, how would the American people know some of the true aspects of other countries? And also, you see, I happen to have faith not in any government, but in some people, especially the Chinese people. Because I personally grew up there. I was in China 11 years, and then we were in Taiwan, and for like 6 years, and I came here. Because I found that you talk about 大学, you see, everybody says, China is not scientific. I said, China wouldn't be where it was without all these scientific attitude. 大学是格物致知, that's scientific attitude. And also, you see, right now, the whole country, the whole world, they try to rule. Some people, they want to rule, they said, 富国平天下. They haven't really actually 修身齐家, so they haven't done that part. See, that particular proper order is very important. And, people confuse that Confucianism is like feudal. But Confucius always said, 孝悌忠信然后学文. You know how to be a person, how to first, because no country is perfect unless the people, actually, the majority of people are responsible. Sorry. Yeah. My question is, how do you look at the long view regarding China? I mean, despite all the political systems.
You mean the long view into the future? For long view in the past, I did go back 2,500 years. To go the other way.
I'm talking about the long view, let's say next 50 years or something. Or maybe next decade. I think, okay, maybe next 10 years. Yeah.
The preceding copyrighted program is a property of the University of California, Los Angeles. All rights reserved. It may be used freely for educational and not-for-profit activities. For other uses or to make an inquiry, please contact the Asian American Studies Center at UCLA.